Hello, welcome back. And thank you, as always, for joining me. I'm delighted to have you here. And if you're just tuning in for the first time, or if you've only watched a couple of these videos, welcome. These are designed for everybody. They are. They're designed for everybody. A Course in Miracles is a universal self-study curriculum. So anyone may take this curriculum because it's self-study. So it doesn't make any difference what your religious or spiritual background is, if any, or what tradition or traditions you're currently practicing, again, if any. Makes no difference. These videos are for you, whether you have been a student of this course for 30 plus years, as some of you have, or whether you're just checking this out, and anywhere in between. Welcome. What we're going to talk about today is pretty much the same thing that we talk about every day, universal principles, and we're going to take a very practical look at things. It's really important that we stress the practicality of these ideas because this course aims to turn our perception right side up, not upside down. It's already upside down. The ship needs to be righted, as it were. It is upside down. This course aims to help us change our perception 180 degrees, to make a switch in the way we see ourselves and our brother and the world itself. Everything, nothing less. Nothing less. So, along those lines, we can expect to encounter tremendous internal resistance. Isn't that exciting? Expect resistance along the path. This is our ego. We think we are an ego. We think we're an individual. We think we're separate from our brother. There appear to be 8 billion of us, separate, individual self-sustaining survival units that call ourselves human beings. And we run around in competition with one another, afraid of one another, when we don't have to see it that way. The ego is not an opponent to be feared. It is not something to kick in the face. You may have seen these bumper stickers and t-shirts and merch that says kick fear in the face. Well, what they mean by that is don't give in to fear, but this is a course in miracles. So let's take that a step further and not stop at just the surface level here. You have no opponent. There is no opponent to kick in the face. And if you make one in your mind, then you're simply making a mistake. That's all. It's not a grievous sin. It's just an error. And that's what we're talking about today, is the correction of error. And if you're following along here in the text, we're in chapter 9, section 3, which is entitled The Correction of Error. And as I often do, I think about what the title of this video is going to be before I turn on the camera and microphone. And I often come up with something that is different than the title of the section that we're working on today. Yeah. No, I'm led right to the correction of error. Okay, so what error? Separation. Separation is the error. It is the only error. We are not separate from our brother. Our brother is us. That's what one means, after all. It doesn't mean he's related to us. It doesn't mean that he's similar to us. It means he is us. There is no separation of any kind. So let's continue this line of fact. There is no separation from God. We are not separate from God. We are not separate from our brother. Only God is. Only. All else is illusion. God, love, simply extends himself. Like extends like. You are the Son of God, also known in this course as God's creation, as the thought of God, the extension of God. This is the Son of God. The Son of God does not refer solely to Jesus, the historical Jesus that walked the earth in the Middle East some 2,000 years ago, according to our artificial calendrical systems, which we've made up. The Son of God is one, singular, and it includes all of us, without exception. Remember, like extends like. Perfect love extends perfect love. It cannot extend division and subdivision and guilt and blame, rejection and fear, classification and subclassification, haves and have-nots, hierarchical structures, all of the drama that we've made up in the world, we can unmake. Such is the power of mind, your power. So I invite you to exercise it. And even if all you do is watch this video straight through to the end and think about it, that's more than enough. Because what you'll find is you'll continue to think about it, maybe sporadically, but you'll continue to have these ideas percolate in your mind. At one point, you'll decide that you wish to put them into practice, which is where and how you learn that they are true, through direct experience. Spirituality is all about experience. It is one thing to understand this conversation intellectually. It's another thing entirely to put it into practice, and that's where the learning really is. By practical application, our experience then shows us that these ideas are true, and they are. If you don't believe me, that is perfectly okay. That's the ego talking right there, shouting, bleeding, yeah, whatever verb you wish to use. If you don't believe this, that's perfectly all right. You're invited to prove all of this to yourself. Want proof? Prove it to yourself. That's how we do it. It's how we learn. And if you genuinely and honestly commit to doing it, you will not see yourself, your brother, or the world the same way ever again, which is a beautiful thing that deep down we all want. We all want the peace of God. That's what has us interested in spirituality in the first place. At some point, you have heard the call of our inner teacher to awaken. It is this call that has us even interested in spirituality. Without listening to the call, there's a lot of other content out there. That's an understatement. There's a lot. There are a lot of phenomena out there. And it just seems like the number of phenomena continue to grow. I mean, it just keeps going and going and going and going and going, doesn't it? The truth is, you only need to be able to count to one in this course. The math test is strikingly simple. One. And if you remember no other word, one, remember that word. One with God, one with your brother. All right. So that sounds simple enough. It's very simple. We bring the complications ourselves through our extraordinary doubt, which is based on our conditioning here in the world, where we think this is the Son of God. We think the physical body is life. Not even. One of the central ideas of A Course in Miracles is you are not a body, which we all know, yet we're conditioned to think that we are. Our biology textbooks tell us that we are. Our societies tell us that we are. The mass media that we consume certainly reinforces that idea, doesn't it? Consume, consume, consume. Buy this and you'll look sexy. Buy this and you'll feel hot for about 15 minutes. Buy this new car. What they don't tell you is there are a lot of bad drivers out there. And at some point, someone's going to bump into that new car, your shiny black Mercedes late model. And oops, just saying, nothing in this world lasts because there is no world. That's the central teaching of A Course in Miracles. Here in the Course, Jesus makes that very clear. And then he also goes on to say something that's very practical, such as how many people are ready to accept that? I mean, when you honestly proclaim what this course says, it's quite apparent that people aren't necessarily going to be beating down your door to get in on the party. They're simply not ready. However, you are, and I thank you for that. We all thank you for that, whether you're aware of it or not, or whether someone ever says thank you for forgiving the Son of God. We all appreciate it very much. So let's talk for a couple of minutes here about the correction of error. The ego, this false sense of individuality with which we identify, is always alert to other people's faults, isn't it? It's always alert, hyper vigilant, and alert to the errors in others, somebody else's screw ups, someone else's nasty comments on social media, someone else's mistakes. It's always very quick to point them out. And then we follow that up habitually by judging that other person as an idiot or worse. And this is how the world appears to operate. Again, appears, there is no world. Here in the dream, because this is most definitely a dream, we lash out and judge all the time. We're very, very attuned to the error in others. So the ego is a simple mistake. How do we correct the mistake? Well, we listen to our inner teacher, the Holy Spirit. Now, the Holy Spirit goes by many names, even here in A Course in Miracles. Correction of error, for one, capital C, the answer, comforter, the voice for God, the universal inspiration, and you may call the Holy Spirit whatever you want. You may call the Holy Spirit more than one thing and refer to it as your guides, plural. Whatever, it doesn't make any difference. The Holy Spirit is part of your mind, part of our mind that speaks truly, that is the voice for God, that will tell you and show you what to do if you allow it to. You don't even have to use the word him if you don't want to. The Holy Spirit's not a person. Technically, it. So what you'll find in these videos is I use those pronouns interchangeably as directed by him, it. Who's really doing the talking here? Well, it's not Reverend Tomas Garza. That's just a name that appears in the corner of your screen. What you see is a pixelated image on that screen. The voice you hear has been sent through this device over here called a microphone, and you're listening to it wherever you find yourself. When something lands for you and makes sense, that's your inner teacher speaking to you. And you would do very, very well indeed to listen. The ego is a mistake. Correction lies in relinquishing it, not kicking it in the face and making it an opponent and making yourself angry and aggressive in the process. It lies in simply relinquishing it, setting it aside. That's it. We only think that's hard because we want it to be hard. But what if you don't want it to be hard? What if you really want and deeply want the peace of God and nothing else? Then we set the ego aside. How we do this in the practice of A Course in Miracles is through what we call true forgiveness. We forgive our brother. We forgive the world. We forgive space, time, the ego itself. It's nothing. Forgive it. Look past the surface to what is really going on, to the content. The outward form varies. There appear to be 8.5 billion or 8 billion or whatever, however many of these things running around, plus countless animals and birds and fish and other life forms and things like that. It's just perfect oneness. When we forgive what our brother appears to be doing on the screen of life, we're looking beyond the actions to the content, who he really is. And who is he? The Son of God, you. As we forgive our brother, we forgive ourselves. And similarly, as we judge our brother and condemn him, so we judge and condemn ourselves. Your brother is you. The outward appearance is just that, an appearance. He only appears to be different. So when we forgive, we, in our mind, overlook the drama and the crap that he's putting forth. The negativity on social media. Just because someone can post something, they do all the time. Do you lash to judgment, or do you forgive instantaneously and automatically, habitually, under the guidance of your inner teacher? Big difference between the two. In fact, that's the only choice that we have in the present moment. The Holy Spirit or the ego, God or the ego, truth or illusion, light or dark. Characterize that in words in whichever way makes you comfortable. It's the same choice. And we all have it right now. You could choose to run and hide and say you have no choice, but eventually the suffering will get to you and you'll come back to the place where you are right now. Now, when I say forgive, we don't mean that you have to call your brother up and have a lengthy telephone conversation. Not at all. You don't have to invite him or her over for a 3.5-hour tear-jerking conversation. Forgiveness is done where it's needed in the mind. You don't have to talk to your brother that you're forgiving. You don't have to talk to your own worst political enemy here in the world as you forgive him or her mentally. You don't have to type out an email or call or text. They don't even have to know that you're doing it. What's important is that you do it. It is in your mind. So this is something that you can do anytime, any place. What's the cue to do it? Well, thinking about doing it, remembering to do it. And in fact, this course is very helpful as a practical matter when it tells us in many places that anything uncomfortable, anything that causes you discomfort or pain or fear-based thoughts, anything at all that does not have you feeling wholly joyous is an opportunity to forgive. You forgive what appears to be outside. Central to this practice is the acknowledgement that your brother is you. There is no separation of any kind. The supposed separation between us and God, which is symbolized by the Garden of Eden and other creation and fall myths, never took place. Ever. We're perfectly at home in God where we've always been. Remember, like extends like. Not separate individual units. God doesn't know any separation. There is no separation. So when we point out errors in our brother, when we call him an idiot or worse, for example, we're simply reacting to our own error. Why is that the case? Your brother is you. So when you choose to see his errors and mistakes, you're choosing to see your own errors and mistakes. So when you react to those errors and mistakes, you're simply reacting to your own errors and mistakes. When you choose to extend love to your brother and forgive him or her, then you're forgiving yourself. You're extending love to yourself. It is that simple. It's disarmingly simple. And let's emphasize disarming. Relinquishing the ego is dropping our defenses. When you begin to practice this, you'll notice that things that used to really get to you may no longer bother you at all. In fact, you may find one day that you don't even think about what would have driven you crazy years ago. That's a beautiful feeling. Some of you have had that multiple times on the path. And if you haven't, I wish that for you. It's going to happen. How do I know? The separation never occurred. All we can do is simply delay the inevitable, which is awakening. We've never left our home in God, ever, which I hope you find an encouraging thought. So as we see our brother, we see ourselves. And if we react to error in our brother, we're simply making it real to ourselves and we're losing the way. Only because we're choosing at that point to follow the wrong teacher. This choice that we just talked about a couple of minutes ago between truth or illusion, the Holy Spirit or the ego, we can choose one of those as a teacher, and only one, by the way. They're mutually exclusive and do not know each other and don't communicate with each other. They're 180 degrees separate from each other. The Holy Spirit and the ego don't interact. They don't get together for a martini or coffee and talk about how they can torture you. Yeah, not at all. We choose one or the other as our teacher. And deep down, we know the teacher that's going to show us how to perceive truly, which leads us out of this psychodrama that we could choose to set aside. When we judge our brother, we're listening to the ego as a teacher. And when we forgive and extend love to our brother, we're following the Holy Spirit as our teacher, which is who I invite you to follow. All right. So along the way, questions are inevitable because I hope that in this video and other videos and your own reading and study of this material, you're beginning to get a sense of how deeply radical this is. It's a 180. It aims to bring about a complete shift in your perception. So it's quite natural that along the way there'll be moments of questions. If you've got them, I'm more than happy to answer them. And this is as good a forum as any. So I invite those questions here if you've got them. If you have comments, I'd love to hear from you. If you just wish to type out a brief hello, that would be lovely as well. So love to hear from you in whatever format you choose. And if you have not yet subscribed, that I invite you to do as well. The subscription arrows here in the corner of your screen, just go ahead and click on that, and I invite you to join us. There are several of these videos that appear each week, and we're going through the text of A Course in Miracles, which of course means we have a lot to talk about. So there's plenty to practice, but again, in wrapping up here, it's all about practical experience. This is how we prove to ourselves that these teachings are true. We demand proof in all aspects of life. We demand that people cut right to the chase. We're deeply impatient, but let's cultivate a little patience and love for ourselves and our brother, because we're the same. We're one. Thank you, as always, for tuning in, and I will talk to you all very, very soon.